There are some toxic materials in most solar panels. The crystalline silicon panels I mentioned earlier that are what most panels are that are going into solar farms. They have small amounts of lead in the solder and where those tiny wires melt down into the front of each little cell. So it's just a few grams of lead per panel in most panels in the industry. But there's no reason to be concerned about the small amounts of lead in the panels. They're very well encapsulated for the life of the panel from the environment, from the air, or from moisture or rain. That front piece of tempered glass protects physically and from the elements all the components of the panel. And then there is what's usually EVA. It's an industrial adhesive, or the industry calls it an encapsulant, that sandwiches all those cells. So there's no moisture, no air that ever gets to those cells throughout the life of the project. So there's no release, no chance of release of those materials during the life of the project. Then there are questions about what happens to the panels at the end of the life of the project. Say they were to be, in a worst case, crushed up and broken on site, just abandoned and crushed and broken over decades. What are the chances of those materials leaching out of the panels? And the research that's been done now over decades is showing that very little of those elements will leach out, even in that worst case scenario. Most of the research focuses not on that scenario of being left in the field, but of the more likely scenario of going to a landfill. These are considered non-toxic materials. They can be disposed of in a landfill in nearly every case. And there's some standardized tests, a California version and then an EPA version to determine if any type of product is hazardous waste or not. They crush it up into little centimeter-sized or smaller pieces, roll it around in an acid bath for a period of time, and then see what dissolves out into that acid. And that's simulating time in a landfill. And it's been shown that if that liquid's not acidic, then almost nothing leaches out into it. The academics and scientists that have been studying this feel like there's no risk to health or to neighbors or to the community from anything leaching out of the landfill.